Hello and welcome to the Coaching Podcast, Coaching for Success in Sport and Business. Your host is Emma Doyle, the energy and high performance under pressure coach who is a world leader in unleashing human potential. Buckle up for this high octane session. Let them have it, coach.
G'day everybody and welcome to the Coaching Podcast. My name is Emma Doyle and today I have the pleasure of interviewing Jeff Greenwald. Now, Jeff is somebody I feel like we've been two ships passing in a night at conferences and tennis congress. So I'm so excited to chat to you, Jeff, and welcome to the show.
Thank you, Emma. Yeah, I'm excited to engage and see what we can do to help some people out there, you know?
Absolutely. That's what the Coaching Podcast is all about. Now, for those of you who don't know Jeff, he's an internationally recognized sports psychology consultant. He's the author of The Best Tennis of Your Life. Apparently, there's 50 mental strategies. We may get one or two out of him today. He's also still competes. He's a former world number one ITF player in the men's 35 age division. And I'm really interested in this notion and this combination of where this practice of psychotherapy for the past 20 years meets the actual mindset of a champion, so that we can learn one or two things in our life and to help coaches out there with their players in the areas of sports science and so much more. So, Jeff, we'll get straight into it. The first question is the Vegemite question, the Australian spread. So I want to know, A, have you been to Australia? And B, what's your take on Vegemite? Have you tried it?
I have not. No. Okay. But next time I go, I will have to do that for sure.
All right. Well, in which case, I'm glad that you've been to Australia and you love Australia. Let's kick it off with your a great coaching moment and what was a lesson.
Well, yeah, I was thinking about there's so many 25 years, what to choose, right? Obviously, one that just seemed to strike me in the moment, and since then, I think when people hear about it, it really resonates for them. And so I will share that, which was many years ago, right when I was beginning sports psychology and seeing kids, junior players. And this one player, he was ranked in the section here in NorCal, and we were working together. And he went to play this match, and he lost the first game of the match. He wasn't even serving, so but he lost the first game. His racket, he banged his racket like through the towel, and it's 1-0 in the first set, you know. And he went on to lose 6-3, 6-2, I think, in the match. And we talked after, and I asked him, I said, what were you thinking after the first game? You weren't even serving. You weren't supposed to win that game, really, you know. He said, well, Jeff, I thought if I lost, my ranking would go down. So, yeah, okay. I said, well, what if your ranking went down? Well, I probably wouldn't get into a good college. Okay. Yeah, I was following his thinking there. I'm like, well, and what if you didn't get into a good college? Well, I'd be homeless probably one day, you know? And he was sort of half kidding, but half not. And, I think that, we didn't even have social media really back then. It was in 97, I think. And the fear that performers feel in certainly adolescent athletes, tennis players without a ton of experience, and, the pressure of parents and peers and getting into college, and cashing in on that, which that golden ticket has only become more intense and exposed on social media, et cetera. So, but that really sort of highlighted and it really resonated for me too, because I felt that I had played in a particular way on, in college, on the tour, a bit safe, a bit tentative, fearful of losing, always thinking about win-lose, right? So that was sort of a coaching moment where, I helped him with perspective and we talked through that, but we sort of exposed the beast there and got to then get to work and try to focus on the things that actually would help him win, so.
Absolutely. Thanks for sharing that. It reminds me of the coaching tool of chunking. What we mean by chunking is imagine a funnel. When people chunk up, he's in the first game of the first set and he's already thinking about the college scholarship that might happen, if his UTR goes down. This is such a common story that I hear over and over again, as I'm sure you do. So just a reminder of when we chunk down instead of up into manageable pieces of what's within our control.
Totally.
That can unlock the door to playing Fearless, which is of course your website.
The brand. Yeah. The sort of idea that, and we have fear, but to be able to commit to your intentions anyway. And, it's, and eventually that leads to a level of confidence, right? We will get into more of that probably in a little while, but yeah, totally. The fearless
intentions. Yeah.
Approach.
Yeah. All right. What about on the flip side? Can you think of a coaching moment that didn't go well, and what was the lesson?
Yeah. When I think about that, I reflect on sort of the parent dynamic so I coach parents, I coach players, athletes, coaches too, but there've been a few, but this one in particular where he was saying he was really just sort of not happy with the results of his son to date, after maybe a month of working or something. But I find out that he's literally telling his son he sucks after he loses, and he's telling him that he's not going to get into a good college, and that and yet he's expressing his dissatisfaction and putting pressure on his son, and his son is doing all he can do. So that button, not good enough, parents sort of living vicariously through their kids without knowing it, or they do know it and they don't care, which is worse. But yeah, so I got into it with him, and that's only happened a few times, but that's a button that for me, when I'm coaching a family, and it goes too far, where there's a rigidity and there's not him showing any empathy, any perspective, any self-awareness. And so that's where I have to go in pretty hard, and that's not fun. Most people are really receptive and want to do the right thing. They just don't know they don't either have the awareness or capability, tools perhaps to manage that well. But
yeah, absolutely. So for coaches listening to that story who also share that situation, so what would be self-awareness, empathy, like what's your top tip around how does a coach take the first step towards having that conversation?
Well, I think it's really easy for all of us, as we're talking about, to get caught up in the short term, today, tomorrow, what's your UTR, college is, coming down the pike, and tournaments coming up, and everybody gets pretty hyper, and we just lose perspective, and the coach's opportunity, as Emma, is the impact a coach can have, certainly parent, but coaches can have on their athletes. It's extraordinary for a lifetime, right? The role that coaches play, not being a parent, being in that space, being trusted. So to just keep that perspective that they're teaching life skills, they're teaching they're teaching so much. That opportunity is huge, and it can be squandered. And unfortunately, many do, because they want to win and they want to teach. They're coaching because they want to teach what they can, and then they want to get the results, and they feel pressure to get those results, just like the kids. So there's a mirroring going on. But I think the more we can, like John Wooden did and others, know that if we can teach a kid to fish and not give them the fish, for example, boy, what a gift, right?
Yeah, what a gift. It's so worth it once you can get through the pain of that, of those courageous conversations, for sure. All right. Could you share with us a sliding doors moment? I'm sure, as you said, you've had many years in the industry, but is there one that stands out for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty distinct for me. It would have been in Germany. I'd played the tour for a couple of years, worked at the ATP as well in marketing. But I met a woman in Florida, and she happened to know a coach in a club that were looking for a coach. So I went and coached at a club some highly ranked juniors then, and played for the club as well, one level under Bundesliga. And so I was making money playing and coaching and in Hamburg and learning German. It was wonderful. 2 years there. But after the first year coaching and picking up balls and sort of, it just didn't feel like it was quite enough of a stimulation challenge for me mentally in terms of how I'm wired. I'm really wired. I'm in meaning, what's meaningful, what's powerful, valuable. What are we doing here? How can we make the best of it? Whether you're hitting a ball or otherwise. So I was just picking up balls, and I thought, I really, and I'd been thinking, I guess, but I think psychology would be really good for me. Kind of the next step. I was 26, 27. And then I thought, what about sports psychology? That would be really cool. I'd been playing too, by the way, better and better being over there. I was playing just loose and free. I started tasting. So I think the big turn for me was tasting what it felt like to be loose and relaxed, hitting the ball. I started playing, hitting deeper, harder, winning every match I played. The people are like, geez, I didn't think they were going to have to pay me all that, because I was really doing well. And I thought, I guess the moment, Emma, was, wait, you can be this loose in matches? You can be like really, really ripping without holding back. And yeah, like you have control of that. I said, I really need to go study this. I really need to go understand the mind body. So that's where I moved back to the Bay Area. I went to graduate school and got my clinical and sports psychology degrees and opened up a practice, got licensed as a therapist. So, it's 25 years ago now. So yeah. Yeah, but that was a big moment.
That's thanks for sharing that. It's also sometimes a little daunting being 26 years of age, and then to think now you've got to go back and study. And I use the word back because a lot of people come to me and say, I'm coaching someone at the moment and this person's, low 30s. And I'm like, well, you do realize that your generation can have up to 13 different careers, not jobs. So if you want to go back and study, like, go for it. Like that, especially psychology. It's years of training, isn't it? Like for you at 26 to make that choice.
Totally. It really was. People, my friends were buying houses and then, really pretty, in their jobs. I get back, I entered graduate school, I think at 29, and so it was a decision and it wasn't easy. And
a commitment, I'm sure. And there's the finance
paid off. Yeah.
Part. So that's awesome. And for those listening, if you're wondering, like, God, there's got to be something more, or how can you even supplement your coaching, or that's this whole process of just being a learner for the rest of our lives. The more we can consume, the more opportunities we can have. So keep searching for meaning if you're listening to this podcast and wondering, is there something more? There is. So just keep peeling back the layers of the onion.
Exactly.
Yeah,
there really is. It's endlessly fascinating, right?
Correct.
The coaching dynamic, or the performance aspect, and it's not just X's and O's. There's a lot of nuance. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited. I know you've got a book. I've finally got one in my hands too. What makes a great coach? It's our next question, where I've put in here 520 of some pretty amazing coaches, and I love just still collating the data on our guiding question, which is in 1 to a maximum of 3 words. What do you think makes a great coach?
I think we hit on it: self-awareness, empathy, and belief. Well, I think the self-awareness, if you aren't keeping your ego in check, so being able to monitor yourself, your reactions, your patterns, understanding your personality and tendencies, and with other people, how you relate to other people, what your impact is, which sorts overlaps, of course, with empathy, right? Being able to put yourself in their shoes. So what you say, what you do is being received in the right way. You're trying alternative ways to reach a particular athlete or person. And, you're not just stuck in your being rigid in your own view. And because everybody does have different backgrounds and different personalities and different moment, not to mention timing is important. So I feel like that awareness is crucial. Again, being able to understand impact above and beyond your own needs, your own desires, which are fine if you are motivated just like an athlete. You want to win. It's okay. It's great. Gets us out of bed, but there's a whole lot more to this experience, right? So, and then
Belief.
So if you don't believe people can do it at the end of the day, or they're not doing it, and then the tendency to try to save them or not ask enough questions, not be inquisitive and inquire enough, then you're not giving them a chance to come up with the answer too. And I think that's a massive gift, to be able to sort of be so talented or again, aware that you can, and curious, frankly, that you can help an athlete introspect and come and feel like they're part of the process. So it's a collaborative exercise. And I think that's where we can lose a huge opportunity with coaches, because there's that desire to teach, right? And it can come out of a good place, passion to, hey, I've been through all this, I've played forever, and I was in this moment, and to share that, and that may or may not hit for that or land for that player. And so I just think believing in athletes and that they can do it, that they have the resources to do it with the right approach.
What you just summarized there is one of the reasons why I offer this podcast out there, because that moment in my life when I realized that coaching is about unlocking the potential that lives within the person through, as you said, that collaborative process of being curious and asking questions, that was such a massive shift in my life. It is the reason that I run this podcast, because if I can influence or impact one coach to think about things differently, from the chapter 1 in my career where I had verbal diarrhea basically and taught nothing really, even though I thought I was teaching so much. So thank you for sharing those 3 qualities. All right, our last official question is where we ask you to ask us a question. What's that one question that sparks your curiosity?
But it's the I guess it's sort of revolved around the why, right? Like, and so why, here you are doing this coaching podcast, you realize that your impact is, as a coach, is huge, and then doing a podcast about coaching, it has more impact. You want to make impact. So what do you think it is in you and in what you're most curious about that sort of drove you to want this, need people to know this?
Great question. So just expanding on that, I will go ahead and probably just share it. It was born from a deep curiosity to see that when I asked questions, I was getting such a different response from the player that was sometimes different to even my map of the world. And when I accepted that, so it comes back to that self-awareness, amazing things unfolded for the player beyond sometimes what I thought was even possible for them in their life. And so it comes back to, I think, being deeply curious as to why a person does what they do. Why do they behave that way? Why do they choose that pattern? And then asking those questions, sometimes people don't even know what they don't know as well. So thank you for posing that for us all to reflect on. What are your thoughts there?
Well, I think too, don't you think people, as you discovered that, they're kind of stunned that you're so curious, interested in them, right? That maybe you'd ask that follow-up question. They'd say, "Oh yeah, that's just how I play." And well, what how'd you get there? And do you like that? And are you, there's really an endless amount of questions you could ask someone, frankly. And I thankfully am naturally curious. Like they keep coming, the questions, because there's so many, we're very complex, we're not just this or that. I mean, you can try to box people, but most people are a mix of things and in conflict often, right? So, and don't know, like you said, exactly what they want. But that curiosity to know people, to know what makes them tick, and have them know what makes them tick, and to be humble about that, because we don't have all the answers. We may be able, with the athlete, the person, be able to find it together. So I think curiosity is the sword we wield. Yeah, it's a very powerful thing to use and have it become a natural, authentic thing. It's really important. Yeah.
Okay, I want to go to this thought that I often tell people, which is that the mind and the body is intrinsically connected. So I want to ask you, what comes first? Do I have a negative thought that then plays out in my body, or do I have something going on in my body that then creates the negative thought? Or is it not one versus the other? Did that make sense?
Perfect sense. Absolutely. It's, again, back to complex. Yeah. I mean, there's certainly, first we have the subconscious, unconscious, right? So we bring to the table a particular need, desire, fear, etc., right? Talking about meaning earlier, what's important to you. And so that's going to set the stage too for your day, your performance, your life, potentially. What drives you, right? I guess back to the why. I became very, very deeply committed to being loose on the court after I just tasted it, and I wanted that. And I genuinely, intrinsically found that valuable, to be loose, even if I missed. So that allowed me to continue to go for my shots. It gave me permission to miss it, because I wasn't going to back off just because I missed a forehand long by 2 inches. Most people do. They back off. I don't want to miss. I don't want to give a free point away. But if you can kind of manage that and be relentless and a bit stubborn about that, good things happen. But back to, so you bring to the table this sort of intentionality, right? And hopefully you can mold that, help players, athletes with that. And then, so they're the context is better for them. Now, that being said, thoughts are going to come up, automatic negative thoughts. They're going to come up. And if we're not aware, that thought will chain together to another thought, and then another thought. And then go from losing the first game in a match to being homeless, right? So this wick was going quick, and it does go quickly. This happens, as you know, in seconds. Yeah,
I'm sure people could relate.
Right. I'm gonna if I lose this, then my UTR drops, and I'm gonna not get into that college. My parents, yeah. So we have these thoughts. When I was playing Francisco Clavet in the semifinals of the 40 Nationals a few years ago, 2018, before, or was it 19, before COVID, I guess. And I was down 2-0, 40 love. I hadn't won a point yet. He beat Hewitt, he beat Agassi twice, 17 in the world. I'm on the place, I won the worlds. And I say to myself, if you could lose 6-0 here in front of all these people. But in that moment, I smiled, and I'm like, oh, well, and I refocused. I wasn't hijacked by that thought. So you can have a thought, and if you let that thought go, of course, you can put the car back on the road. And it can be just like a car drove by. Okay. And that's what you can learn. But if you don't, that thought will chain together. It'll instantly create the anxiety, the physical tension, etc., heartbeat, you name it. And then you're playing safe and hit yourself. Okay. So now, but you could be like, no, I didn't have any thoughts. There you are. It's 5-all, third set. And all of a sudden you just get tight, heart's pounding. You didn't really have a thought, or you weren't aware of it. But the amygdala will sense danger. And if you see a snake, if you don't like snakes, and you see a snake.
Which happened last weekend, by the way, on a hike in Colorado. I turned the corner and just about to step on a rattlesnake.
Jesus. And did you leap like 20 feet or what?
Yeah, I bolted back the other way, even though like I'm Australian and, deadly snakes. Oh, no problem. I've got this. Nah, I was out of there.
I remember at the ATP and when I was running, same, it was hot. And then I saw a snake. Michael Jordan had nothing on me. I was like, he's like,
yeah,
I was up but anyway, it's not like, oh, snake, I hate snakes. No, it was the visual cortex sees the snake. I'm up 30,000 feet with United Airlines, and so we have that reaction, and then our nervous system, our sympathetic nervous system is firing. So then you have to calm it down, and at that point, it may take a few minutes, by the way, to calm it down. It doesn't go away in a breath or two. It takes a few minutes if your sympathetic is just jacked up. So the thoughts affect your body, your feelings, and your behavior. So we know that, and it goes the other way. So to your point, it's reciprocal. And then lastly on it, because this is so common, I have to say it, you go into a match, an event, and you feel nervous, as you feel the butterflies. The best in the game are like, yeah, of course, great. They're excited. People who don't have the confidence or experience are like, oh crap, my heart's pounding, or oh no, and then they have a negative thought about it, as opposed to like, yeah, of course, I'm getting fired up. This, I can't wait.
Yeah, and yeah, to your point, this theme around self-awareness. So knowing what is your pattern of coming, whether you need to reframe if the body is starting to change, just to have that self-awareness to then go, okay, this means that I care. This means that I can be intentional. This means that my body is preparing for competition, all those beautiful reframes. So being self-aware of knowing what comes up first for you and your patterns, I think is the take-home message there. Would you say?
Totally. There's the self-awareness, right? And then you look at Novak, who, he smiles, he gets tight and he's using it all the time. It's like, because it's so physically, serotonin, it releases serotonin immediately. You have perspective. You look up at a palm tree or whatever, a tree, you've just expanded your vision, because when we get scared, we start going super narrow. So, right, that expanding your vision relaxes your body. It's so we can do things physically that can take it all down pretty quickly.
Okay, so what about on the flip side then to that thought? What do you mean by develop a pinpoint focus? I know that you cover that in your in your book. Could you tell me what you mean by that?
Sure. So that's a relevant cue, right? I mean, the ball, the ground, the strings, the target, right? These are all, in fact, 80%, you want to be narrowly externally focused 80% of the time, right? As you know, right? So where we get into trouble is we're going internally too long in between points or whatever after a play, making a mistake, could be in the boardroom, and you said something and you ruminate over it, and you're in the past, all that stuff. Yeah, the ability to bring your focus to the task at hand is different than sort of thinking like a deer in headlights that a car is coming and you're going to be eaten alive because you just missed that forehand. And now you're very narrow on the fact that was a really bad mistake. It's going to cost you, and a lot of people are staring at you right now. That's more of the primitive brain, right? But the task focus is essential, right?
Yep. Into that neocortex part of the brain so that you can control what you can control. Control the controllables, beat around for years, but it's still so important.
Right. And it's easier said than done, isn't it?
Isn't it?
Right. You're out there because, especially if you're trying to close a match out in tennis or finish something, and then the brain goes, I have a player, he's top 250, he's going to be in the qualies of the Open, he's doing really, really well right now. But he was up playing great, and then he goes up 5-4 and a little hiccup, because you're almost there. The finish line is just staring at you, right? But the better you get at being like, you can have the hiccup, maybe you play a tight point, but then you just shake it off and come back into the pocket again. You don't have to get logged off and have to log back on, Wi-Fi, sort of thing. But focus is so important,
Yeah, totally. I want to touch upon one of the reasons I think that you've certainly been so successful and I've followed your career is this notion that you still compete, right? So you still have experiences. For me, it's more in the golf world these days that I put myself under pressure. And so you're able to even, apply the tools that you are teaching to others. So how important is that for a coach out there to still put yourself under pressure to perhaps even feel what your clients go through to some degree? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'll tell you, Emma, like as far as back to empathy and putting yourself in your athlete's shoes and other people's shoes and not coming from this ivory tower where you're like, just talk, you just need to talk better to yourself and, don't get mad, and it's like when you put yourself into moments that are stressful, you remember, your nervous system is jacked up, maybe you got, insecurity, a little bit of doubt going on, and you have to wrestle with those things, right? So I think it does kind of can pull a coach back into like, let me slow down here. Let me really get to know my player. What's it like for them? Tell me what it's like for you when you're in that moment. Where do you feel the tension? What's your instinct? Play it safe, back off the ball. But I do think whatever it is they do, whether it's golf or, pickleball, or I think there's a lot of value in that, to not get too far away from the experience of the people they're coaching, who are really wanting to win, really wanting to cash in on all the work they put in. So some coaches don't, they're just naturally teachers first and coaches second, maybe. And so they're really tracking this process. But I do think there's a tremendous amount of value in being in some scenarios that put you there. Yeah.
So what's the difference between teaching and coaching?
So I think teaching can be more geared toward the learner, and is more, it feels to me, has a little more emphasis on learning and even maybe science behind the learning. So it might, whether that mean it's a process that's methodical and thought out and matching the time and the place of the student and where they are. And I feel like it can take into account more qualities of the learner. I think coaching, while certainly overlaps with being a teacher, it can veer off in multiple ways, in motivational, punitive, pressure, the ego, demanding, which is fine if it's appropriate for the athlete, they can handle it, et cetera. But I just think there's a distinction there. And the ultimate, of course, is merging them, I think.
Yeah. I agree with that for sure. So speaking of merging the two, I know that one of your favorite topics to talk about is optimal communication. So I'd like to know what that means to you, and if you could share who's somebody who, has influenced the way that you communicate. Like, how did you learn how to optimize your communication? Of course, we don't always get it right as well. So I'm not saying it's easy to do.
Yeah.
So what does optimal communication mean to you, and who impacted you the most in this area?
Thanks. Yeah, no, I appreciate that question. I think it comes back again to the curiosity and the empathy, humility. My dad, for sure, like to a fault maybe, but he if he meets you, you will not leave that room before he knows your entire life story. You'll have to sneak out, I mean, like, he'd already love you, you're fun, you're smart, he would be like, and he wouldn't really let you out unless you asked him follow questions. He won't talk about himself, which is, so I think he modeled, and so many people really love my dad. You know, he's genuinely curious. I mean, Uber drivers, he's gotten every Uber driver's life story. Literally, he should have written a book. He's 90 now, but he could have written a book about it's a melting pot of America. I mean, it's incredible. This one, I have to go off topic for a moment. He gets out of an Uber. He comes to visit me like last year here in Marin. He gets out of the Uber, and the Uber driver gets out of the car like excited and, I love your dad. He gives my dad this hug. He gives me a hug. Like, so I think I got that in terms of just, I'm genuinely interested in people. I really want to know. And so the conversations are easy and people appreciate it. I think people like to talk about themselves. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
People like it. If there's some interested person, they wanted, and that's why there's like one therapist for every 9 people in Marin County, I think. In American, I don't know what it is, but people need to connect and belong, and so communication to me is a genuine interest in people, and keeping ego tame and a little bit out of it's not the point. Obviously everybody needs a healthy ego to be successful, and you need to want to produce and be successful, and maybe more because you want to master something, which I feel is optimal, but then just because you want to get here and there and all that stuff, which is fine too, right? To achieve, but hopefully it includes, people and collaborative, and it sort of feels connected and so forth. So that optimal is really about connection and curiosity and all that.
Yeah. Well, shout out to your dad.
Yeah, thanks.
I love that. I'm a little similar to your dad with when I get in an Uber. I often know the person's life story when I get out. So and those listening, if you ever want to practice your questioning skills, it's a great opportunity at a social party. Just start asking as many questions as you can. It's a great way to improve your curiosity in how to ask questions. So
also stunned, Emma, just on that point, like that, I'm surprised, more people don't really drop into the curiosity more, because it's enjoyable and it creates good energy. So anyway, I just want to say, hopefully this is useful for folks. To think about.
This is again what the podcast is all about. What I want to finish on is this concept of I really want to win, or I really want to close this deal. And the more I want it, do I push it further away? Could we finish on that one?
Yes. You're right into my lion's den there. Yeah. This is the conundrum of the world we live in.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly the sports world we live in, business, you name it, because we have an outcome we want. We have a result we want.
Badly.
For whatever reason.
I want it badly, Jeff. I want this so bad.
So bad. So bad.
So bad.
And there comes the terrorist hijacking the plane, and you're just like, oh no. Yeah. So, I mean, I have to just say, when I got more connected to gratitude and a missed forehand, if a missed forehand or a lost match or set, it was the worst part of my day. That, you know what, like, it's a pretty damn good day. You got life by the tail. I remember Christopher Reeve, Superman, who was paralyzed at I was 30 years old, and he fell off the horse, and I was on a ventilator, right? And that's when for whatever reason, whatever I was doing, it stuck with me. Superman is now in a wheelchair, and I thought, and I'm playing tennis, I was playing well, and gratitude really struck me as being important, and that while we want to win, we want to make more money, or you want what you want, higher UTR, better college, that the way you're going to get it increase the probability that you'll get the thing you want so bad is by, as you said earlier, Emma, focusing on what you have control over, coming back to the task, coming back to mastery. And how loose do you want to play? How aggressive are you willing? How willing are you to miss a forehand or, a free throw and come back and reset and do it again without missing a beat? So commitment. So to me, it's coming back to mastery and engagement and the focus. And then guess what? The greatest irony of all is you get more of what you want without directly seeking it. So I know it's kept me in business for a long time, right? So
commit to that intention. I know I've listened to you talk in previous podcasts. I know we didn't take a deep dive into that, but that's really what you're saying at the end of the day. If I'm going out to play that match, commit to an intention that's within your control and be stubborn, be relentless in your commitment to that intention. So listen, we have to wrap things up, but it's been such a pleasure, Jeff, talking about self-awareness, empathy, curiosity, belief, and humility came up a lot as well today. So let's check our egos at the door. And Jeff, thank you for being on the Coaching Podcast.
Emma, it's wonderful talking to you. I look forward to doing it again. You're doing great work. Thank you so much.
I appreciate you. And thank you, everybody else, for listening.
The Coaching Podcast is sponsored by Transition Coach for Athletes, a global coaching, mentoring, and U.S. college sporting scholarship placement service. The service helps athletes navigate the often challenging world of choosing your best college fit while maximizing sports performance. Visit www.transitioncoachforathletes.com. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a rating review on your podcast listening device. And don't forget to tell a fellow coach about the show. The ball is in your court to take action and enjoy your coaching.